that's kind of teaching you, and instead of sitting in a classroom or sitting in an office or sitting somewhere, you go for a walk? Jesus did that all the time. And I took, years ago, there was a pastor at the Pasumsik Baptist Church who was fluent in Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, and English. I mean, he was a scholar. He actually preached from a Bible that he had made that was Hebrew and Greek, had no English up here when he preached. And I was blessed enough to spend some time with him and my pastor at the time. We'd go there once a week, and we'd go for a walk along the river. And he taught us in Greek the prologue of John. I don't remember it now, but that was a long time ago. But what a different atmosphere it is when you're talking and walking instead of sitting there trying to get it in your head. And why did Jesus do that? Because there's opportunities along the way to say, look at that tree. The kingdom of heaven is like that tree. So a relationship while you're walking, there's just something about walking through life together in relationship that is precious. And that's His way, is relationship. It's not about some religious thing. It's about relationship, walking day by day with Him through life. So I hope that as we go through this series, Walking in His Ways, that each Sunday, each time we look at this, there's this new layer of understanding, perhaps, or revelation, or even just as a reminder of something that will help us to walk in His ways. And, of course, it's a new way of life when we walk in His ways. How many of you are saved? Come on, if you're not, we need to talk. How many of you remember the way you used to walk compared to the way you walk now? If you don't remember anymore, I would encourage you to spend some time revisiting, not looking back at the good old days, but looking at the way, what a mess it was and how damaging it was and all of the stuff that came out of that caused you to come to the place where you surrendered your life to Him. Now, if you were raised in a church and you can't remember a bad time, praise God! That's the best testimony. I'd much rather be there than be able to tell you about how nasty I was. Just so you know, God gets more glory there than He does the other way. But it's a new way of life, no matter when that transition began to happen. And it's a day-to-day walk. And by the way, Jesus said He is the way. Not a way, the way. So unless you're walking in Him, you're not walking in God's ways. You're walking in your own ways. You're walking in the world's ways, or you're walking in the enemy's ways. In the early church, I don't know if all of you knew this or not, but the early church was known as the Way. So it was a sect of Judaism that they called the Way because Jesus was the Way. Pretty interesting, isn't it? Now we're the church, and we're all confused because we lost our identity because we're supposed to be walking in the way. By His death, Hebrews 10 says, by His death, Jesus opened a new and life-giving way through the curtain into the most holy place. There's a way to life. There's a way to His presence. There's a way into the throne room, and there's only one way, and it's through Jesus Christ. Period. So as we talk about the way, let's not forget, 7-8 weeks from now when we're still talking about walking in His ways, let's not miss the fact that Jesus is the way, the only way. There is no other way, period. Any other way will lead you in a path of destruction and deception. Moses prayed, show me your way. What a great prayer. And David prayed, show me your ways, teach me your paths. I think what's good for Moses, what's good for David, might be good for us. What do you think? And this walk, one of the reasons we should never compare ourselves to other believers is because this walk is a walk. Now, if you started on the same day and you're in the same fellowship and all of those things, maybe it's okay to look and see where somebody else is, but worry about yourself. Don't worry. Think about yourself. Consider yourself. Consider your ways. Where are you in this walk from infancy? Because when you get born again, what are you? You're a baby. When you got born, what were you? You were a baby. And as you've grown, what have you become? I hope we're becoming mature. We're getting older, if nothing else, but hopefully there's maturity with it. So it's a walk from infancy throughout our spiritual journey to maturity. We're all on that spectrum somewhere, I hope. The only ones who aren't on that spectrum right now are the ones who have not yet been born in this room. And it's an intentional walk. It's not something that just happens. You can't walk His ways without considering your own ways and making decisions that will force you or cause you to change your course to be in His ways. Now, it's interesting. Years ago, my buddy that lives in Oahu shared with me this great word picture that I've never forgotten. He said, God could tell you ahead of time where you're going and what you're going to do, all of this stuff. It'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Just think, if he could sit in the car. I mean, he could tell you, okay, I want you to drive from Vermont to Los Angeles, and here's the map all mapped out for you. Or what he'd rather do, because it's about relationship, is sitting in the car with you and say, take a left here. Okay, go ahead. Okay, now take a right. Take a left. Take a right. Take a right. Take a left. Because it's about relationship. It's not about him giving you some grand plan and you running for it on your own. He wants to go step by step by step with you along the way. Now, here's some statements that I believe are very true, and you could tweet these if you want to, Heather. You could Facebook them, whatever you want to do, but you have to have all three of them. To glorify God, we must serve Him acceptably. Did I say acceptably right? To glorify God, we must serve Him the way He wants to be served. We can't just do what we want and think that it's going to be glorifying to Him. I mean, we can do good things, that's awesome, but how much more glorifying it is to Him when we do what He wants us to do. By the way, did y'all check in on your Facebook app this morning? Glory to God. To serve Him acceptably, we must know Him intimately. If you don't know Him, how can you know what He wants you to do? How can you know how He wants you to be if you don't know Him? And you need to know Him intimately. To know Him intimately, we must seek Him diligently. Again, it doesn't come to the passive. It comes to those who are reaching for Him. There's this thing He's put in us. He's put in us a hunger and a thirst and a desire to know Him, but He's there. He doesn't move. We need to move towards Him. I love this. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. And I added this, seek His face, not His hands. Because I've been around a long time. I've done it myself, so there's no condemnation. Quite often, we as Christians will go to our Papa God and we'll ask for stuff. Right? And we've got needs, we've got wants, we need this, we need that, so we go and we ask for stuff. And it's interesting because one of the things that I enjoy about the Dominican culture, and I'm not saying this because you're here, is that I've been there 13 times in the last 6 years, and very, very seldom do I find a Dominican who's looking for what's in my hand. They want what's in my heart. I've not found that in every culture. And what a difference it makes the way that I'm able to relate to them, because they don't see me as dollar signs. They see me as a person who's there to serve them and serve my God. Did you catch that? Seek His face, not His hands. Seek His face, not His hands. If you seek His face, He's already promised us, Matthew 6:33, seek you first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and He'll give you all these other things. So if you're seeking these things, you're missing the point. The point is you need to be seeking Him. It's about Him and you and relationship. And just so you know, I'm going to say some things today that sound contrary to where I've been. We as a church, the body of Christ, the family of God, the army of God, all of that, we are corporately is the reality of how we're called. But today we're going to talk about you. Okay? That doesn't take us out of the corporate setting. But I'm going to talk about you. You're going to think about you, not about us. Generally speaking, we need to be thinking about us, not ourselves. But today, it's going to be a time of personal reflection and hopefully personal growth that will benefit all of us. So out of Egypt. I put out of Egypt there so I could remember to tell you the story. For those that don't know it, maybe there's somebody here who don't. The children of Israel, and that's one of those church things, isn't it? The children of Israel. Who calls anybody the children of anybody? So the people of Israel, actually it was Jacob's family, became the children of Israel because Jacob's name got changed to Israel. So the children of Israel became the Israelites, who now are the Jews. Does that make sense? So they were in captivity in Egypt because Joseph went to Egypt and became the ruler of the land. Famine came into the land, and he brought his family there. They prospered there, and then they ended up in slavery to the Egyptians 400 years later, etc., etc. So now they're in Egypt, they're in slavery. And God raises Moses up to deliver them. And in that whole process, God glorifies himself in awesome ways because he causes these plagues to come up on Israel. And these plagues weren't just random things. Each one represented a god that the Egyptians worshipped. So God, our Father God, was saying, I got your God, and then some. I got that God, I got that God. They're all under me, period. And then at the end, of course, we have the Passover and the loss of the firstborn sons of the Egyptians. And at that point, Pharaoh said, go. Take whatever you want and go. So they went out of Egypt. They were delivered from Egypt as a people. And in that process, God wasn't done impressing them and the world because he brought them to a dead end. You could preach this too. He brought them to a dead end where there's no hope. They're on this peninsula and there's water in front of them and the army behind them. Where do we go? Oh no. And God said, go. And across the water they walked on dry ground, and the Egyptian army was drowned, destroyed. So they experienced all of this awesome power. And then they get over there, and what do they experience? They experience the cloud of God's presence during the daytime, the fire of his presence at night, manna from heaven, food, water from a rock. They've experienced all of this stuff. And it brings us to where we're going to be today, at the foot of Mount Sinai. So you got to remember all they've experienced. They should know that God is awesome and powerful, shouldn't they? So 2 months later, after they've crossed the Red Sea, 2 months later, they're at the base of Mount Sinai on the plains. The people of Israel camped on the plains at the base of Mount Sinai, Exodus 19. Then Moses climbed the mountain to appear before God. The Lord called him from the mountain and said, give these instructions to the family of Jacob. Announce it to the descendants of Israel. See what happened there? Jacob and Israel are the same person. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians. You know how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you will obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my own special treasure among all the peoples on the earth, for all the earth belongs to me, and you will be my kingdom of priests, my holy nation. That's a good promise, isn't it? Come on, is that a good promise? From a good Father? Then the Lord said to Moses, I will come to you in a thick cloud, Moses, so the people themselves can hear me when I speak with you. Then they will always trust you. Go down and prepare the people for my arrival. Consecrate them today and tomorrow. Be sure that they're ready on the third day. For on that third day, the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai as the people watch. So God's giving Moses a warning saying, get the people ready because I'm going to come down. They're going to be able to hear me. They're going to be able to see me in the cloud. They're going to know my presence in a way that they've not known before. When the people heard the thunder and the loud blast of the ram's horn, and when they saw the flashes of lightning and the smoke billowing from the mountain, they stood at a distance, trembling with fear. And they said to Moses, you speak to us and we'll listen, but don't let God speak directly to us or we'll die. Aren't you glad that we're not there? Now, I will help us fill in a few blanks in a moment. So the children of Israel are at the plain underneath the mountain. God calls Moses up to the top of the mountain and speaks to him and says, prepare the people. I'm going to come down so that they can hear me and know that I'm here so that they'll listen to you, basically. Right? We all got that? So those people, the people of Israel, they were at a distance. It says in the New King James Version, at a distance. They kept themselves at a distance. They actually withdrew instead of drawing closer because they were afraid. Should they have been afraid? Yeah. But it should have been a healthy fear, just like we should be afraid. I mean, we serve an awesome God. I mean, He is awesome and powerful. He is the God of all creation. There should be a measure of fear when we come to Him, but not in a way that keeps us from Him, just in awe and honor. They never fellowshiped directly with the Lord. It was always through Moses. Never once did they have direct contact. Now, I know we're in a different covenant, so we'll get to that in a minute, okay? They never spoke to the Lord face to face. They never experienced Him personally. They did corporately, and they saw Him from a distance. They had that experience, but that's as far as it went. They never sought Him personally. At a distance. They always heard from God indirectly. Even from then on out, it was always through the voice of Moses, or the voice of this prophet, or a voice of this one, or the voice of that one. It was always through someone. It wasn't to them directly. It was impersonal. Wow, how did all that happen all at once? It was impersonal. It was distant. It was limited. It was shallow. Now, they were redeemed from Egypt, right? They were set free. They were delivered. They're free. But they didn't know the one who delivered them. They knew of Him. They saw His awesome works, but did they know Him? Did they know Him? Now, the people of Israel. Now, so there's that one group of people. There's three groups of people we're going to talk about today. And I believe even in this room right now, there are basically three groups, well, probably four. Four groups of people. There are the people who don't yet know Him. And maybe there's someone in here. I don't know. That's between you and Him. Maybe you don't even know. Maybe you've been deceived into thinking that you do know Him. Because we can be religious and look like we know Him. Hello? Right? So once in a while, it's a good thing to do a review of our hearts and say, am I right with you? Then there are those that know Him, but kind of like the children of Israel did on the plain. They know Him because they listen to Joyce Meyer, and they know Him because they come to church and they hear somebody up here speaking about Him, and they know Him because of all these external things, but do they know Him? And then the next one is the 70. God told Moses to bring 70. It was Moses, Aaron. I'm glad we don't name our kids these things. Nadab, Abihu. And the 70 elders, so God told Moses to pick 70 elders out of the people. And they climbed up the mountain. Now, they didn't go all the way to the top, but they climbed the mountain. So there's this group of people that climbed the mountain. They saw God. They saw the God of Israel. Under His feet, there seemed to be the surface of brilliant blue lapis lazuli. Anybody know what that is? I Googled it. I'll show you in a second. As clear as the sky itself, and though these nobles of Israel gazed upon God, He did not destroy them. In fact, they ate a covenant meal. They ate a covenant meal, eating and drinking in His presence. So all of this fear was for naught, because God did everything He did because He loved them and He wanted to set them free and redeem them. So they missed His whole purpose for everything He did, was to create a relationship, a covenant relationship with them. Now this, oh man, where's my blue azul? That is lapis lazuli, however you say that. It's a blue rock. Anyhow, it's a semi-precious gem, and when it's all polished up and everything, it's absolutely beautiful. I saw pictures on Google, so it must be true. So the 70. So look back, there's the people, the multitude. They know God from a distance, right? They know about Him, they hear from Him, but never directly. The 70, instead of drawing back, they drew near. Hello? Now, I will get to the rest of the story here in a minute, as far as, we live in a different age. Instead of looking away, what did they do? Because it says that the children of Israel, when they saw the thunder and the smoke and the fire, they looked away and they withdrew. Instead of looking away, they looked upon. Instead of fleeing from the cloud, they basked in His presence. See, when you begin to know Him, the fear changes into honor and respect and awe, that causes you to draw close because you know He loves you. Their knowledge was direct. They had direct personal knowledge. It wasn't secondhand, it was firsthand knowledge of the God that they were serving because they sat with Him, they ate with Him. It was clear, it was personal, but it was limited. There was a limit on it because it was only for that one time. Then there's Moses. Moses went all the way to the top. He went to the top alone. Actually, it says he went to the top alone the first time. The second time he took Joshua with him, but Joshua stood back from the actual conversation. He was there to serve Moses, not to meet with God as much. So he made the climb. Do you see what's going on here? There's a choice that's being made to stay here, to move up here, or to make the climb. And sometimes we have to make the climb alone. There was a meme recently about Judas having a great pastor and all of this stuff, but still, where did he end up? See, it's your choices, personal choices, that are going to determine where you end up. I'm responsible for the overseeing of your souls, but I'm not responsible for your reaction or disregard or disobedience or any of those things that you choose to do on your own. This is a deep and rare relationship. I mean, Moses and God, they were like, and it was for 40 days and 40 nights. That's 960 hours that he spent with God. This was an ongoing basking in His presence and just awesome time with God. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be on the top of a mountaintop with God. And it's interesting, as we were in the prayer room this morning, Joe prayed that we'd have a mountaintop experience this morning. Now, just so you know, you can't live on the mountaintop in our day and age. You go there, you get experience with God, you get to know Him better, then you got to live somewhere. Moses didn't live on top of the mountain. He went to the top of the mountain and spent time with God, prolonged time with God. Compared to the people who had zero and the elders had a brief experience with Him. The result is really what's interesting. The result that Moses got was revelation. You spend time with God, He's going to reveal Himself to you. And He's going to reveal with Moses, He gave him the 10 Commandments. But He gave him a lot more than that, right? Now, if you remember, Moses got the 10 Commandments twice because the children of Israel that were down on the plain got sick of waiting and decided they were going to make their own God to worship, one that they could control. But He gave him revelation of the 10 Commandments. He gave him revelation on the way to live. Because the way to live is listed in all those other laws is how to live. This is how you live in a way that's going to honor God and is going to be best for you. You know, when you look at Old Testament laws, God didn't create them because He's a big meanie. It's because He loves people and He wants to see them successful. If you eat pork that's not cooked properly and refrigerated properly, you're going to get sick. God didn't have anything bad about pigs. I like bacon. I think God likes bacon. I think everybody likes bacon. If you don't like bacon, we can pray for you. But the reality is that God had the way to live. He laid it out so that we'd be safe. And He revealed it to Moses. Actually, it's pretty interesting. Somewhere in all of this process, God revealed to Moses the creation story. Everything that happened before his time, God revealed to him because He wrote all of that. So God revealed to him Adam and Eve and Noah and all of this stuff. Isn't that amazing? How do you get revelation? By being in an intimate, purposeful, intentional place with God. And He teaches you the way to live, the way to build. He gave him the blueprints for the tabernacle. So in the process, it's not just how to build a building, but it's how to build a life of worship, a way of worship. Because the tabernacle was the center of worship. Moses was ever seeking. Now, he was reluctantly seeking at times. I'm sure that he'd rather have gone back to the wilderness with his father-in-law's sheep many times. And you can read it in some of his attitudes. These people, your people, help me, God, I'm going to kill these people. And ultimately, his attitude kept him from the promised land, didn't it? He was ever climbing. You know, he went all the way to the top. And what a sad thing it is, Pastor Pete, what a sad thing it is when you climb the mountain but you don't make it to the top, huh? That's a lot of work and you don't get the view. I'm just picking. I'm glad you didn't go all the way to the top. I'm glad you're here. For those that don't know, he climbed Mount Mansfield last year and stopped about, I don't know, part way up, and because he was having some issues. But don't you wish you'd been able to go to the top, though? That's a good idea. Next time, drive. You got a culvert in your artery. He's ever asking. Moses is ever seeking, ever climbing, ever asking. That's how we need to be. Intimate, full, rich, overflowing life comes out of that place of being intimate with Him. If you have been born again, if you've not, this does not apply to you. If you've been born again, you have access to His presence, His very throne room. Did you get that? If. There's a big if there. So if there's anybody here who's like born again, I hate that term. Well, I didn't say it, Jesus said it. And that's the requirement for entrance into the kingdom. It's a new beginning, a changed heart. It's giving your life to Him. It's being saved, whatever you want to call it. But if you've never experienced that, you've never made a commitment to Him, I like to think of it as a transfer of life, actually. It's my life for His life for mine. I die, I give Him my life, He gives me His life. I no longer live, but He lives in me. If you've never been there, if you've never done that, let today be the day. Maybe this whole day was set up for you. Wouldn't that be awesome? Like Angie's grandma at 98 years old. We all have the same access, but we don't all have the same degree of fellowship with Him. Is that a true statement? It's kind of like in our culture. The United States of America, I believe, gives equal access, equal opportunity. We've got laws that make it law that there's equal opportunity, but not everybody, even in the same culture, not everybody attains to the same level. Is that true? Is it because some people are more gifted, more talented, or is it because they take advantage of the opportunities and press in to those things that God has before them? That's not a political debate, so don't email me. It's just an example. In Christianity, though, think about this. He said He's given us everything we need pertaining to life and godliness. Did He say that? So if He's given every one of us as His children everything that we need pertaining to life and godliness, what is our excuse? Why are some here and some here? Yes, some of it's time, maturity. You've been in the kingdom longer. But I've known some people who have been in the kingdom longer than me, and they're still, honestly, babies. Not in this church. No, this church is... But do you know any... I mean, you're not supposed to compare yourself, so I'm not asking you to do that, but you know people, right? They've been around the things of God forever, and they're still like, oh my goodness, will you ever get it? I'm the only one that knows people like that? I'm just the only one being honest about it. And I'm not judging, by the way. I'm hoping that this message brings us to a place where each one of us is grabbing on to the next for us. Some live on the plain, and they're content to live there. They follow Him at a distance. They see Him dimly. They know Him in a superficial way. They hear from Him from afar, usually through other people. And they go to church sometimes. But they don't see themselves as the church. They just go to church because it's the thing to do if you're a Christian. If that describes you, today is a new day. Let me say that again. If that describes you, it doesn't have to be that way. And if you are living there, you find your faith dull, boring, and dry. If you find your faith dry, boring, or dull, you're living on the plain. And I want to encourage you not to. I want to encourage you to go up the mountain. I want to encourage you to intentionally begin to walk in a way, the way of devotion, the way of seeking Him, the way of going after Him, the way of grasping for Him, the way of asking, the way of hunger, making yourself, even when you don't feel like it. I know last week we talked about you get to, you don't have to. But sometimes even when you don't feel like it, do the things that you know you need to do because that's what's going to bring you to the place where it's no longer dry. It's no longer boring. It's no longer just some rote thing that you go through, but it's alive. If you're living there, you don't hunger for more. You're just kind of content. You know, you go to work, get your money, pay your bills, come to church, go to work, get your money, pay your bills, watch TV, whatever it is that you do. But you never, ever get to experience God's goodness. You hear other people talking about how wonderful and how awesome He is, and there's a jealousy that rises up in you. I want that. Well, if you want that, do you really want that? Come on. Do you really, really want that? If you want that, then there's something that you need to do, and that is pursue Him. Chase after Him. Get motivated. Get around people that are excited about Him. You know, if all you do is come to church on a Sunday and then it's only occasionally, and then you go back out and you're never around anybody who's excited about the things of God, you wonder why you're not excited? It's contagious, you know. You get around somebody who's got passion for Him, you get passion for Him. But if you isolate yourself and the whole world's going by and next thing you know, it's Sunday again, it's like, oh, I'm tired. It's nice out. I think I'll go fishing. And honestly, if you're living in that place, are you actually sure of your salvation? I'm not sure, honestly. I'm not sure if when I read my Bible and the things that Jesus says, that people who are living in that place are actually even saved. That's scary for me to say. It's a scary thought. But I would rather err on the side of being scary than being soft. Some make it up to the side of the mountain. They have had personal encounters with God. And probably most of us have had, at one time or another, a mountainside experience, at least, maybe a mountaintop experience. If anybody relate? You've gone to a conference, you've been in a special meeting, you've been even at church, and all of a sudden it's just like this, wow, this is awesome. There's times that are just intimate and you just know that He loves you. And I hope that we've all experienced that. If you haven't, you can. Now, our life is not to be experiential driven. It's not about the experience, but it's about knowing Him. It's about experiencing Him. Not just an experience, but experiencing Him. And the problem with this is that many of us, and myself included at times, it's occasionally, not daily. It's when the special event comes. It's when this happens or when that happens. Instead, it should be a daily encounter we have with Him. We should be in a place where we're experiencing Him day by day, even throughout the day, not just a half an hour at the beginning of the day, but throughout the day. If you get to that place, your life will turn upside down, I promise you. Because you're going to be at the supermarket and you're going to experience God at the supermarket where you don't expect to experience Him. The next thing you know, you're doing something foolish like paying for the groceries for the person in front of you. You visited there, but we're not dwelling there. There's a huge difference, isn't it? You're alive in Him, but are you fruitful? You're alive in Him, but are you fruitful? Good question, isn't it? I think that's where most of us are. I think that's where I am most of the time, if I'm going to be honest. Can I be honest? Because, you know, I'm the pastor here, but I'm a person just like you. I have a spiritual journey that I have to walk out just like you do. And there's times when it's just I'm doing what I got to do. There's other times when I'm so excited and passionate about it. I want to be in that place. But how do I get to be in that place all the time? It's by making choices day by day by day. Not by going to some event here or there once in a while, but day by day, making the choice to sit in His presence and to hear His voice. To get the revelation that He wants to give me. And He doesn't want to just give revelation to pastors, you know. Now, here's an example. Mary Ann, now I'm going to just brag on you for a second. I was so encouraged yesterday because Bishop preached a message out of Romans 13, 11, 12, 13, 14. And he said three things that came out of that passage for him. And so Mary Ann came to me, when I preached that message about starting something, Mary Ann came to me and said, God's put this on my heart for a long time, and it's time to start it. So on June 3rd next year, is that the date? the day before Pentecost next year, Mary Ann's vision is to have the churches in Vermont come together and pray. Now, we may not come all together in one place, but have the churches together praying. So the bishop says there's three things that God really spoke to him in this passage. Well, there's actually the other part of the message where he says you got to wake up. Anybody heard that message lately? This is to the church here. Wake up, get up, because just waking up. I woke up this morning at 4:04 and I fell back asleep till 4:19. That's not good. So wake up, and then get up. Don't just wake up and lay in bed. Wake up, get up, dress up, put the armor of God on, get in the place where you got Him on you, His righteousness, and then line up, because there's a ministry for you to do, there's a work for you to do. Okay? So that was his message, but the end of his message where I got really excited. Three things that he said that God has shown him, and the first one is that the church and the churches need to come together in prayer. In a way like we've never done before. Secondly, he said we have to have a refiring of urgency to preach to the lost, to preach the gospel so people come to Christ. It's like, man, you're talking my language now. And then he said, thirdly, he said we have to be more urgent than we've ever been. I'm like, dude, you've been reading my notes. Because urgent, there is an urgency. He asked the question, do we really believe that Jesus is coming back? If we really believed it, we'd live differently. If we really believed that our neighbors, when they die, go to hell, we'd live differently. Craig Rochelle wrote a book entitled Christian Atheist, because he said most of us don't actually live what we say we believe. We live like atheists. We don't trust God. We don't believe He's coming back, because if we did, we'd live differently. Pretty convicting, isn't it? He's a megachurch pastor. Those megachurch pastors are always watering everything down just to attract people. Tell you what, that's pretty in your face. I don't care who you are. Are you alive but not fruitful? Are you producing fruit? Is your life a continual being in His presence, or is it an occasional thing? And again, I think we're all kind of there. Most of us. I don't want to speak for you, but I don't want to be there. I want to be where Moses was. Why is it, though, that we get stuck there? Dominic and I have had some pretty good talks about why discipleship is so hard in our culture and in this church. And I believe it boils down to this, first off, the lust for riches and the cares of this world. Now, the lust for riches is something that humankind has to deal with, isn't it? Because we want. We're never content, and I'm not saying I'm better than you, because I said we, not you. We're never content with the 55-inch TV. We got to get the 65-inch TV. Then we got to get the ultra high-D curved smart thing. Now, maybe that doesn't apply to you, but it's Father's Day, and to most men that applies. Now, all the men are glaring at me. Maybe it's not the TV, maybe it's the boat, maybe it's the bike, maybe it's something else, but you get my point. We got this thing in us. It's not how we're created, but it's how we are. And then the cares of this world, I mean, we got bills to pay, right? How many of you have seen the kind of the new fad is the small house, the tiny house movement, the minimalistic thing? Maybe we don't have to have as much as we have to have. Maybe if we had less, we would think less about paying our bills. Just throwing that out there. And I'm with you. I have a house. I have bills. Maybe we're lazy. And I tried to find a nicer word than that. But maybe we're just lazy. Or maybe we lack self-discipline. Or maybe, I got my phone. Maybe what's supposed to make our lives easier ends up sucking life out of us. Things like this. Maybe we all say we want community, but we don't want to pay the price for community. Maybe we're just plain offended and don't want to deal with other brothers and sisters. So we isolate ourselves and don't even bother going to church because church is full of people that we don't want to deal with. That's how babies think, not how mature people think. Hello? Some, at least, spend good quality time at the summit. I don't think we're supposed to live at the summit, but can we live at the place where we're in the summit mode? We're all in. I mean, all in. Where we've actually given everything that we are and own to Jesus Christ. And He lets us steward whatever it is He chooses to give back to us. Are you guys, come on. I know it's sunny out and it's Father's Day, but all in. Anybody ever play poker? It's okay to play poker as long as you're not playing for real money. Right? So if you're playing for pennies and dimes and that stuff, that's probably, if you're playing for stuff that's going to cause you to lose your house, stop. But if you ever played Texas Hold'em poker, or you've seen poker tournaments on TV or something, all in is all in. It's like, I think I got the hand that's going to win this one. All my chips. Everything. It's do or die. If I lose, I'm out. Isn't that the way we're supposed to live our lives as Christians? All in. If I lose, I'm out. If what the Bible says is not true, I'm in trouble. That's how we're supposed to live. All in. I'm getting excited. You guys can fall asleep if you want. I'm just getting excited. Come on. All in means all in. That means that think about this. I say this, I think this, but am I actually doing it? Everything I own, everything I am, I've given to Him. That's fine until He says, I want that. Oh, well, I didn't really mean it, I guess. Or let me cut a little closer to home for some of us. I want that 10%, that we talked about. I want that. What do you mean? I earned it. No, you didn't. Come on. Are you all in or not? If you're all in, tithing is not a problem. If you're all in, giving is not a problem. If you're all in, selling everything you own and moving to Africa and living in a grass hut's nothing. Are you all in or not? And Jesus said, if you want to follow me, see, we get this thing where we call ourselves Christians. It's impossible to define what a Christian is. Because I see on television Christians who are holding up signs that says God hates these and blah, blah, blah. That's not a Christian. I'm sorry they can call themselves that, but that's not a Christ follower. Or on the other hand, you got people who call themselves Christians where anything goes. And la-di-da-di-da. And you don't need Jesus. He's just a way. If you want to follow Buddha and Jesus, that's cool. No, that's not a Christian either. Paul said if you add anything to the gospel, it's no longer the gospel. So how do you define a Christian? Well, I'm a Christian. Well, great. Are you a disciple? Because that's definable. Jesus defines what a disciple looks like. A disciple is one who takes up his cross daily and follows Him, gives up everything he owns to follow Him. That's a disciple. So are you a Christian or are you a disciple? Are you willing to pay the price? It's interesting because we were at a meeting over at Pastor Rick and Carmen's house a week ago, and there's a young guy there that's aspiring to ministry, and it looks like he's going to end up pastoring a church. And the question was, not from us, but from everybody in the room, are you willing to pay the price? There's a huge price to follow Christ. Huge price. Being all in really gets down to brass tacks when He says, I want you to sell your house and move. The house that you bought before you got married and raised all your kids in and had all these memories in, I want you to leave all of that, leave everybody you know, and move to Jericho. Jericho? What are you talking about? I don't know anybody in Jericho. Now look who I know in Jericho. Are you willing to pay the price? Are we willing to seek Him first? Not second, not third, first. Are we willing to have the discipline to be diligent in our daily devotion with Him? Intentionally. That's a key word, intentional. The reward, if we do, is revelation. Revelation of who He is, what He wants us to do, what He wants us to be about. Revelation of who we are. In that song, Good, Good Father, what does it say? He's a good Father. He loves me. That's who I am. Revelation of all of this stuff comes by spending time with Him. Of Him, of His ways, of His glory. All this revelation just comes. And the reward is a fruitful, full, abundant life. Not a dry, boring Christian walk, but a full, abundant life that feels like a roller coaster most of the time. You have no idea what's going to happen next. Those that are walking in that know what I'm talking about. And if you were to ask them, they'd testify. There's Stacy back there. Am I right, Stacy? You have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, do you? You just know that you're available. Chris and Linday, a year ago, did you think you'd even think about Nashville? Clay's going off to Kansas City. Now get this. They're moving to Nashville. Clay's not even going to get to go into the house. He's going to go directly from here to Kansas City. So it's like, bye, family. I'm all in. I'm just picking on a few people. Dominic and Bridget, I mean, think about this. They sold everything they owned and went to school in Vancouver because they were all in. Have no idea what it's going to bring them, where it's going to take them. Just doing their best to hear from God and be obedient. It's a full, abundant life, isn't it? You're not bored, are you? Paul says this, "Indeed, I count all things lost for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord, for whom I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish." That word rubbish, by the way, is the same word that's used for dung. You know what dung is? You find it in the back of a cow on the ground. That's dung. I count all of it. Now, Paul was an educated, well-to-do, well-respected person. He surrendered all of that and counted it all as manure. That's all in. That I may what? Gain Christ. That I may know Him and His power of resurrection and the fellowship of His... We don't like that. Let's take that part out. The fellowship of His sufferings, being conformed to His death. Because to follow Him, you have to die. Here's a couple promises. If you seek Him, He will be found by you. That's pretty simple, isn't it? If you seek Him, He will be found by you. If you will seek me and find me, when you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. You got to be all in. It can't be this occasional thing where you put Him off to the side until you need Him. All in, searching for Him. Seek His face, not His hands. And next week we talk about the way of prayer.